Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. My name is Gemma Price, and I'm the Content and Community Manager at Open to Export. For those of you that don't know, Open to Export is the online community where UK businesses and organisations come together to help each other become better, smarter, and more confident doing business abroad. We are proud to be supported by our founding partners, UK Trade and Investment, the Institute of Export, the Federation of Small Businesses, and HIBU. If you haven't already, please do go onto opentoexport.com and have a look at our international e-commerce feature page, which contains case studies, articles, discussions, and just general community content. Today's session is the first in a series of 3 webinars aimed at helping you internationalise your online sales presence. Our scheduled time is 1 hour, so we'll be finishing around about 3:30. If you do need to get away earlier, don't worry, you can catch up on this webinar and all of our previous webinars on our YouTube channel. So you can put your questions to our expert speakers and case studies using the question box in your control panel. We will try to get through all of them, but we do get lots of questions through normally, so if we don't manage to get to yours, please do go ahead and ask it on our Q&A forum at opentoexport.com, where our community will be able to give you a personalised response. While we're just waiting for the last few people to come on board, I'm going to run a quick poll now, which should come up on your screens in just a moment. So what I would like you to do is choose the most appropriate statement to your business, and this will give us a sense of the kind of scale of companies that we've got on the call with us. So what level of online sales presence do you currently have? None, a dedicated website? Are you on marketplaces like Amazon, eBay, etc.? Or do you have a full e-commerce site and marketplace presence as well? Now, while that poll's running, I'm just going to introduce Dan, our expert speaker, Dan Wilson, who'll be chairing today's session for us. Now, Dan is a writer, an author, consultant, and a marketeer with more than a decade of industry experience, and was originally part of the team that founded ebay.co.uk. Dan is now a best-selling author and co-editor of the very popular blog tamebay.com, so I'd encourage you to go check that out. Just before I hand over to Dan, I'll just close the poll and share the results with you. Okay, so actually some really interesting results. 26% of you don't have a marketplace or an online sales presence. 28% of you have a dedicated site, 11% of you are on marketplaces already, and 34% of you have a website and marketplace presence. So that's really encouraging results. So I'm just going to introduce you to Dan. Dan, are you there with us?
Yes, hello.
Lovely, fantastic. Dan, I'll let you continue with the rest of the session. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. Today we're going to look at international trading on marketplaces. I'm just going to say I feel slightly self-conscious here, sitting here on my own in my study, talking to the iPad. So it's good to know that there's lots and lots of you out there. And if you hear seagulls in the background, it's because I live in Brighton by the sea, and it's going to be a scorcher this weekend. So do come and see us. We need your business. And what I want to sort of start off with is give you a quick overview of international e-commerce using marketplaces. And in the first instance, I want to sort of start with an optimistic note, which is that if you want your share of international trade, you can have it. It's still growing. It's a massive opportunity. And as the domestic market here in Britain matures, international sales is where a lot of the growth is going to come from. So if you want it, it's a great time to have a go. And remember in the first instance that you're totally in control. So whatever you're selling, where you want to sell it, how you want to sell it, they're all choices that you'll have to make with special reference to your business. So in the first sense, you're in control is that you can choose where to sell to, whether that's within Europe, further afield, like the USA, Canada, Australia, or all manner of other countries, or whether it's just selling stuff to Ireland. The first choice is where you sell to. When you say I'm selling internationally, you're not saying you sell to the whole world. So there's choices to make there for you. And then there's the sort of concerns, the problems, the barriers. Problems to solve, like how do you get the goods to your buyers? How do you sort payments? What about returns and frauds and things like that? And there's obviously the language barriers. And when you look at the opportunity, I think what's worth saying in the first instance is that there is no problem which is insurmountable. You can get parcels to Antarctica if you need to. Everything that every problem you're going to face can be solved, but it depends whether that's then profitable. So, with that as a sort of backgrounder, I'm going to ask the guys to introduce themselves. We've got two brilliant guest speakers today. We've got Martin Young of Positive Noise, who is a very experienced trader. We've also got Stuart Baldry, but I'll let them talk about their own business to kick off with. So if we start with you, Martin, perhaps you'd like to tell us what you do and how you're trading currently internationally.
Hello everybody, hi Dan, hi Stuart. We are a purely online retailer of music CDs, DVD, vinyl records, associated memorabilia. We sell new and used. We started trading on eBay in 2002, and we're now a reasonably large entity selling internationally. With all the problems and opportunities that scaling up and taking the business kind of further kind of bring to us, we sell primarily on eBay and Amazon, some trading on play.com, quite a lot of international business, can be running anything between 25 and 55% depending on the time of year and the type of product we have to have at the time.
Great, thanks Martin. Stuart, are you there? Do you want to introduce your business and what you do?
I am here. Hello, everybody. I run a company called Urban 33, and basically it started with me selling my own belongings on eBay about 7 years ago, and grew into a business. We now operate 4 brands, and we sell anything from men's earrings to garden gnomes. So it's quite diverse, and we sell through our own website. We sell on eBay, we sell on Amazon, Play, and Tesco marketplaces as well. We have always sold internationally with our jewellery products. It's much easier to send. And Germany is probably our second biggest market to the UK, and now 15% of our business accounts for orders in Germany.
Great. I mean, so Stuart, you said there you started sending the jewellery products straight away when you started selling. Was that deliberate? Was that a plan, or was it there was just demand there for you?
I think it was just on eBay when we started on there to begin with, and when you list products, it's very easy just to click international. I think it's what eBay calls sort of passive international selling, and it's very easy just to click and say we'll send it to anywhere in the world. And we quickly found that that America was quite a good sales channel for us. And because it's small and easy to send, we just send by airmail. So
right, so that's by raw mail.
It is, yeah.
How about you, Martin? I mean, you sell the music products, so obviously Britain is very popular for records and pop groups and stuff. Did you start deliberately, or was that?
We were the classic accidental exporter. In 2002, the UK market was not particularly mature on eBay. I think our very, very first order was from a US customer. And I would say in the early days, probably 50% of everything we sold went to America, in that it was the most mature and deeply penetrated eBay market at the time. Over the course of the next kind of half a decade, the UK market came on with incredible velocity, really, and we kind of didn't really have an export strategy. I don't think anyone really had an eBay, an e-commerce export strategy in the early 2000s, and it was only probably 2007 when the credit crunch kind of hit. It's like, oh, right, we've got a contracting UK market that's been booming for the last 5 years or so. What do we do? How do we kind of keep things going? Where is the opportunity? And it was at that point we started considering export more seriously, and it actually became something we started measuring for the first time. We started looking at the split of where our orders came from, and started looking at various strategies that we could employ to try and either maintain or improve sell through to overseas markets.
So Martin, you deliberately started developing an international export strategy. So what did that entail? Rather than obviously, we want to sell more overseas, were there specific changes to the ways you were selling that you made to sort of make more exports?
We looked at things. It was a range of strategies. It wasn't a single kind of play. By the late 2000s, we were in a multi-channel in an e-commerce sense seller. So we were selling on Amazon as well and Play, and we had more than one store on eBay. And for us, international involved opening marketplace accounts on international Amazon sites, so Amazon.com, .de, .fr, places like that. And then looking on eBay about how we could make our offering more attractive to the international buyer. So we would start splitting out shipping to various territories rather than just having a blanket international price. We would try and weight shipping into the US or Germany in such a way that we were more competitive. And we then went as far as listing a bunch of product in US dollars directly onto eBay.com. And that, all of these things have a fractional bearing on improving your sales. No, there was probably, what we found was there was no one single thing that you needed to do to then become an international seller. It was more a case of there are various rungs on the ladder that heads towards optimizing 100% for what you need to do to sell as much stuff as you can and to take advantage of many opportunities that are available to you. Okay. So each of these things were just, it was an incremental kind of process. Each little bit added something in one area or another.
Was it similar for you, Stuart? So you obviously were making sales from day one as well, but did you then put in place specific plans and specific activities to boost the international sales?
We did, yeah. I mean, probably similar to Martin. Probably about 4 years ago, we were just doing the sort of eBay selling internationally, and then Amazon approached us for .de and .fr, and we started to list on there, and the sort of the business grew quite rapidly for international sales through those two channels to Germany and France. And then last year we took somebody on which worked full-time in-house, which did all our translations in German, because it's our second biggest market now. And so the international side of the business has sort of grown and grown, and now what we're trying to do is focus on specific markets. I think to begin with we were sort of, we would send anywhere and everywhere, and we didn't really have a focus on, say, Germany, for example, whereas now what we've started to do over the last sort of year, 6 months, is really try to focus on specific countries, so Germany, France, and America. And just for example, this year we've focused on Amazon.com, listing on there on our jewellery, and we're sort of seeing growth of about 68% in our orders that we had last month. So I think
that's a pretty big leap.
Yes, yeah, you can sort of start perhaps trying different territories and see where perhaps you see a higher sales increase, and then I think what we've tried to do now is actually concentrate on those markets and perhaps leave some countries sort of a little bit alone to focus on more profitable countries.
So you mentioned there that you've did some translation work for Germany, and this is for you both answer this one in turn. But I'll start with you, Stuart. Now, what are the problems with the language barrier? How big a problem is that? I mean, obviously not a massive issue with America, but dealing with Germany is obviously quite tricky.
It can be, certainly to begin with. When we first sort of started on a customer service level, obviously we were using Google Translate, and the problem is some words, and tended to annoyingly be the crucial word of the message, wouldn't translate. So you'd have to try and guess. So what we actually started to do to begin with, which we have dropped now, but we did used to send a response in German and a response in English as well, both in the message, in the vain hope that they would understand one of them. But now obviously we do it on a German level, and stick to that. But translations haven't been too much of a problem. I think most customers, understand that if they're buying from another country, that perhaps the translation isn't going to be exactly as they would say it, and in some cases we actually get messages just straight in English because they know they're buying from the UK.
I mean, that's the embarrassing thing, isn't it, very often dealing with overseas buyers, is that how superior their English skills are to our to our foreign language skills. How about you, Martin? How have you dealt with language?
How have I dealt with language? We've a couple of strategies, probably none of them work particularly well. We've done the usual Google Translate route. We are relatively fortunate in the lingua franca of the music world is generally English, at least in terms of the product. Most of the product we sell. We do know we're probably at a disadvantage selling into certain territories. So I think if we were able to handle Spanish-speaking customers better, we'd probably do more business in South America. I'll probably add in Portuguese to that. Russian, there's a lot of market opportunity in Russia. It's of a variable quality, but there's it's a big territory with quite a thirst for the type of product we sell. Again, most customers seem to be happy to converse in a form of English. I'm sure if we could better serve those customers, there would be more opportunity. So we go as far as we can within the constraints of the size of business that we are and the time we have available. The other strategy we use is to, obviously, if we can piggyback on someone else's customer service, we'll try and do that. And there are various selling channels via Amazon and other kind of routes that will enable you to just basically concentrate on the product while someone else looks after the customer service.
Okay, great. So you both mentioned using eBay and Amazon, and one thing that struck me is that you said, Stuart, that you'd listed specifically on eBay.com. Or was that you actually, Martin? It might have been you, but anyway, the point's a general one. What are the challenges and differences between eBay and Amazon? It's not about managing single listings that are international very often. It is about honing them and tweaking them. So could you talk, I would start with you, Stuart, of the sort of the differences between international trading on eBay and Amazon, and which has strengths and weaknesses in different parts?
Well, for us, I suppose for my business anyway, we have sort of two streams. We have our sort of jewellery products, which, like I said before, is much easier to send internationally, and we have our sort of garden, home, and Christmas products. And I've always, with both of those ranges, I've actually found Amazon to be far better at international selling for me. So, for example, we listed on Amazon DE, and the sales went through the roof, much quicker, much easier to manage than eBay. I mean, eBay really, it's probably only been over the last year or 18 months that they've really started to change the platform in terms of international selling, whereas Amazon was sort of a bit further on, or much further on than eBay were. And now, because of that, 15% of our business comes through Germany, and the majority of that is on Amazon.de. And we're starting to see, now we're concentrating on Amazon.fr for France, that the same sort of level of business is starting to come from there as well, with sort of growth this year, month on month, of sort of over 100% on sales. So from my business, I would say Amazon is much easier to use and much better in terms of sales volume for us for international selling than eBay.
And I mean, that's because I think with eBay you have to sort of specifically manage multiple listings on multiple marketplaces, which can become a bit of an inventory nightmare.
Yes, it can.
Is that right?
There's that. There's also just simple little things like if a customer doesn't pay for an item when they first buy it, and it drops into your awaiting payment, to send an invoice, you can't just do it in your UK account. You have to log in to all the separate various accounts. There are various softwares out there that you can use. So, for example, Channel Advisor, I think, makes things like that a little bit easier. But it is a bit cumbersome in comparison to sort of international selling on Amazon. Amazon originally you opened a separate account on .de and .fr. Now, with your one UK account, you can sort of flip between them, but each one has its own details of sales, performance, feedback, things like that. Whereas eBay, it's just one account and you just log into the separate international territories, and it's all sort of into one, but not easily used in that one account, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah. Martin, I mean, what's your experience of the differences between eBay and Amazon on that?
We're probably the converse, have a converse experience to Stuart, in that we find that eBay is both in some ways the easier and certainly the more remunerative channel for us in terms of international business. One thing we found is that you can dip your toe in quite easily on either channel these days. Stuart alluded to the European account, which enables you to kind of internationalize your listings with a matter of a small amount of clicks. Certainly with eBay, you do gain international visibility pretty easily. It's then up to you as a seller to hone your skills and to maybe partner with eBay to take those listings and really go to town, internationalize them, put them in native currency, native language, and things like that. So, but steps can happen quite a long way after the initial listings you make on your home channel. You will pick up international business from your home channel if you merely just quote for shipping to that destination. Once you've done that, you can maybe start looking at the data and say, well, we seem to be all of a sudden selling 10 orders a week to Australia. What do we need to do to then optimize what we do for Australia? And that either may involve just concentrating on the customer service side and the shipping, or to get keep your shipping rates competitive and your delivery window as short as possible. Or we may decide that you want to be listing in Australian dollars directly on eBay Australia. So there are, but those things can come much further down the line. It's an iteration process, and you can internationalize at a very, very early stage. You probably should be internationalizing at the first stage if you're commencing selling on marketplaces for the first time, and they're very much set up to enable you to do that now.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true, isn't it? I mean, eBay in particular is on a big drive to encourage cross-border trade at the moment with various promotions, and I think Amazon less obviously is as well. So there are things to plug into there. I think eBay's invited 19,000 sellers to trade on various European sites with some fee incentives. I think they've wiped the fees off for that. So that might be an opportunity for some people. So thinking about, you mentioned it, Stuart, I mean, there are lots and lots of tools and services out there. So whether it's from analytics to listings to managing your inventory, you mentioned Channel Advisor. I mean, there really are dozens. What sort of automation do you use? What sort of services do you use to sort of take a bit of the sting out of it?
Well, we actually use a company called Channel Grabber for our main sort of stock inventory management. So basically, you can input that you've got 100 of these, and it will spread it out across the platforms that you've got that product listed on. As long as you've got things like the SKU the same, it'll match up across the platforms. And then when you sell one from Amazon and one from eBay, it'll start to take it off that way. They do also manage the various Amazon separate accounts. There is a bit of a problem with them in terms, and some of the others, in terms of the way eBay structured their international selling from one account. You can't easily see that you've listed on .com or .de or somewhere like that through there, because it's just showing as one account, whereas Amazon does show up as separate accounts. I think Channel Advisor do have some better tools, but they are obviously a lot more expensive in terms of a provider. Obviously, I can only comment on the two that we use, because we do use Channel Advisor, but we only use those to manage our inventory on the Tesco's marketplace. So as of yet, we haven't used them for eBay or Amazon.
So what do you use, Martin, with tools and services to manage multi-channels?
We actually, in the very early days, we tried just doing it all off spreadsheets, and that was an absolute nightmare. And that early experience, and we were running out of stock here and there, or double selling, triple selling in some instances, meant that we were driven towards using a tool at an early stage, and we found one that was a good specialist media tool that's actually for booksellers, but it adapted well to what we're doing. At the moment, we're using Limworks. That enables us to handle all our SKUs in one place and distribute them across channels, as Stuart was alluding to. It's also going to be the back end of a new website project for us. So a tool is pretty essential if you're going anything beyond one channel these days. In fact, even just on one channel, you're pretty much going to need something that's going to keep track of your inventory, keep track of your customers, able to produce invoices, and eventually integrate with shipping companies and various other services that are out there that are critical to just being in business in an efficient manner. Anything that means that you keep your costs low, enables you to stay in business a little bit longer. It's cut and thrust out there. There is, in some instances, a race to the bottom on price. So the smartest people using the best tool and preserving their margin wherever they can, and looking at things like pricing and automating that side of things as well, are the ones that are going to win.
There are automated services now which are called repricers, aren't there? Which are automated to analyse the marketplace. You put in the parameters you're willing to sell your items, and they'll see what the prices are and match them so that you can maximise your sales. And as I said, there are, we mentioned a few there. There are all sorts of management software services out there, and dozens. So there should be something for everyone. I was going to look at one of the other sort of barriers, if you like, one of the problems to solve, which is that of shipping, and how you approach that. Do you use a single provider, Stuart, or do you have a sort of portfolio of couriers, and what have been your experiences there?
Well, in terms of international, probably 90% of our orders go through Royal Mail, and because we've started to concentrate specifically on certain countries, we now use the Royal Mail Destination Sort, or Max Sort, as they've decided to rename it. And basically what that does is, because we're sending a volume of products to Germany, for example, we can literally bag them up with labels on which say they go directly to Germany. So Royal Mail collect them, and they literally go straight off to the airport, and off they go to Germany once they're checked. So it sort of misses that sorting through Royal Mail, which could cause losses. Another place it could cause losses, but it also speeds up the delivery. And in fact, I think for Germany and America, we pay less using Destination Sort to send to those countries than we do to send a parcel in the UK.
So that's pretty amazing.
Yes, yeah. And then we use, for UK and for some international orders, mainly to Europe, we use a courier company called Interlink Express. And we do that on either where the customer has paid extra or for higher value goods that we want to make sure that that arrives with the customer.
Great, Martin.
Similar experience to Stuart. We've been a Royal Mail customer for a long time. The situation we're in, we're growing volume bit by bit. We start to become a more attractive proposition for other businesses who are wholesaling Royal Mail and other postal provider services. So you're looking at aggregators and people that are able to inject mail into the postal system further down the line and can offer you discounts on Royal Mail prices because of that. So we deal with one of those for international. We're looking at maybe taking some of our domestic mail through that as well. So we're slicing and dicing at the minute, and we're trying to get obviously the best deal that we can without compromising speed too much. That means in some instances we're sorting mail ourselves, and in other instances we're just bundling it up and it's going straight to be sorted by other people. We're also, we use more than one courier company, but we, from international primarily it's DPD, which is the parent company of the Interlink that Stuart was referring to. So there are various sort of routes into it. There's obviously a lot of online providers that you can just send one-off parcels with, or multiple parcels. The entry point is exceedingly low these days. You shouldn't really be in a position where you're queuing in the post office for more than a few weeks or a couple of months before you get a wholesale account or a credit account with Royal Mail at the very least. And Royal Mail generally the first port of call for most people. As your business matures, there are other ways of solving the same problem that will generally mean if you can bring volume into the game, then you can ask for discounts out there, and it's certainly a very competitive market.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, it is very competitive, and there is lots of choice, and it's ever changing. So
yeah,
think,
we've used multiple providers over the last 3 or 4 years, and there's always alternatives. There's always someone else offering something new every sort of 6 months or so.
And as you say, even if you're only selling a couple of dozen parcels a week, have a conversation with them. Make sure you're on the best deals. I mean, you really want to avoid those sort of published rack rates where possible, if you possibly can, I think. What about things like import duties and tariffs like that? I mean, obviously not a problem within the European Union with free movement of goods, but trading further afield, is that a problem? And do you have any advice to people to deal with that, Stuart?
To be honest, most of our business is sort of low value items, so a lot of them miss the sort of import duty thresholds. But obviously when we do any sort of listings that we know where there's a chance that they're going to have to pay the other side, we make sure that it's included in that listing. But I haven't found it a huge hurdle. I think a lot of people are more aware now of buying internationally, and they understand that they're going to have to pay some sort of tax in their country on what they buy. So I can't remember the last time we had an issue with it, really.
I mean, especially at the low end. I mean, the Americans, as in the United States, don't tend to bother with it, do they? If it's a sort of quite low value product, but I think other places can be a bit more tricky. How about you?
Yeah, I think the only country we've found that's been the trickiest with things like that is actually Norway.
Okay, well that's outside the EU, isn't it?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I think there's only about 3 million Norwegians, so it's not a massive market. Martin, how about you?
It's not an issue for us, but it's something we need to be aware of, that it's an issue for our customers, potentially. So, as you say, the US, not a massive problem. Australia has a massively high threshold.
I think it's 1,000 Aussie dollars. If it's something
Yes.
under 1,000 Aussie dollars, you don't pay import.
Yes,
on it.
and so and which means that it's predominantly cheaper for an Australian to ship online with overseas companies. So there's a massive opportunity there as in English-speaking territory. It's cheaper for them to buy from us here than it is to buy from someone 20 miles down the road in a lot of instances. Where it becomes problematic, we found, is again it's particular territories. South America, particularly places like Brazil and Argentina, we are often getting appeals from customers to undervalue their the customs form and things like that. And obviously, as a business, we have to stay compliant legally. We're not allowed to do that. So there's a customer service element to that, and managing buyer expectation to just politely say, sorry, we can't do this. We can possibly mitigate your order if you're buying multiple things. We can send them individually. There are other ways around it to try and minimise their exposure. If just by slightly tweaking your systems, if you're buying 5 things, send 5 packages rather than 1. That doesn't have a massive implication for us in terms of cost, because we're generally just paying on a bundle weight, and we're back to the shipping question there, in that it's often cheaper for us to ship internationally anyway. If we want that business, what do we need to do to optimize what we do to make it as easy for our customers to buy from us in those territories? So again, Norway, 3 million Norwegians, they spend a lot of money on music, so we like, and they're outside the EU, so we love them. They're great customers, and they're very easygoing, and
guys,
we'll
sorry
do what
to interrupt you.
To,
just going to say we've got so many really great questions from the floor, so I was wondering if we could possibly just bring my colleague Matthew Halfon in, and he could put some of those questions to you guys. Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, I actually just wanted to ask one other question, and then we'll do the user questions, if that's all right. Because I wanted to ask what the real pain points were. So thus far, we sort of shipping isn't that much for bother languages, and there hasn't been any real problem with duties. What are the real pains in the backside with international trading? Stuart?
For us, I would say with selling on marketplaces, it's how those marketplaces would show how long the items take to arrive. So, for example, the end of last year, we started selling quite actively through eBay in Germany, because we knew that was a good marketplace for us. What we didn't realise was that they were overriding what we were putting in as a time for customers to see the estimated delivery time. That then had a knock-on effect of us being marked down, and has badly affected our business on there. So I think sort of customers' expectations on how quickly they're going to arrive, and the fact that they're made aware of that they're buying internationally, because on some platforms like Amazon and eBay, it's not always clearly visible that you're not buying from someone in your own home territory. So I would say that that's probably our biggest hurdle, really, in international selling, is sort of how quickly the customer perceives it's going to get there.
Martin?
Probably a similar experience. It's down to managing buyer expectation, and we can only do so much. People like Amazon are very efficient shippers, and they're able to swallow loss a lot more easily than we can. So if that raises the bar, then that raises the bar. So your customer is used to buying from Amazon. Once they start buying from you as a seller on the Amazon platform, you kind of need to be jumping at the same height as Amazon perform themselves in terms of their customer service. So that can be painful. You end up refunding parcels that you think, well, give that another couple of days, that'll probably arrive. It's part of the cost of doing business. You need to manage that proactively, and you can try and avoid those sort of pitfalls, but it involves a lot of work on the customer service end and a lot of dialogue with customers when there is a problem. And again, lost parcels internationally always happens. Some territories are worse than others. We try and build things into our systems so that stuff goes by a trackable method. If we think there's a sufficient amount of potential for that item to go missing, or we feel it's irreplaceable, or we need to underwrite it in a particular way. Again, there were various kind of things you need to do in terms of payment providers. PayPal will react differently to Amazon. Tracking isn't always possible. Like Stuart, we sell low value things a lot of the time. Sometimes you just have to swallow those costs yourselves.
Yeah.
And the other pain points generally around marketplace policies, really.
Okay, well let's move to those questions, shall we?
Yeah.
Hi, Matt. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hear you loud and clear.
Perfect, excellent. Right, guys. Well, there've been literally hundreds of questions flooding in. Thank you for making some time, and hopefully we can get back to you guys to kind of finish off the session in a few minutes. Just a few questions that have come up. The first, actually, from Cam. I don't know if you touched on this so far, but a question about returns and the best approach for returns on relatively low-value products to different parts of the world. I don't know if you guys have got any experiences in that area or any suggestions.
So, I mean, within the EU, of course, there are laws which mean you have to offer returns, aren't there, guys? How do you deal with that, especially for the low items, low-value items? Martin?
It's often not worth, with a very low-value item, it's often not worth the cost of returning it. So we will either barter with the customer, and we'll agree a lower price if the item is partially defective or just not quite as described, and they otherwise want to keep it. We'll offer an exchange if they still want to exchange the item. Sometimes we'll just write the whole transaction off, and we'll be refunding the full cost, including the cost of their shipping as well, to comply with the EU or whatever local law we need to comply with.
Stuart, how about you?
Along the same sort of lines, really. If an item arrives broken or we've sent the wrong item, then we deal with it and we either refund the customer or send them the new one. We don't bother sort of getting the item back as they're low value in that case.
But what about with sort of, say, higher value items where maybe you might suspect that the buyer's trying to pull a fast one?
If certain items that we sell are above a certain level, our customer service team normally asks for photographs of the damaged item anyway, whether it's international or UK items. So if it isn't broken or damaged, then they're going to have to break it to take a photo of it. But I think it's just, it's just part of doing business that you have to write a certain percentage of those things off, just the same as in the UK when buyers try on. I do find, however, in Germany, buyers are extremely honest. If items arrive after we've refunded them because it hasn't arrived on time, they will often send us an email and say, this item has now arrived, can I return it or pay you for it? German customers do seem to be, I would say, the most honest of all the customers that we seem to deal with. Okay,
have we got some more questions, Matt?
We do. A couple from Latif, hopefully I pronounced that right. The first was, I think you guys touched on this a little, was around listing optimization. Sort of best approach to that. Do the marketplaces offer in-house services, or is it best to find third parties or do it yourselves?
Okay, so optimizing those listings for overseas. I mean, there are companies that do this, aren't there? I think one of them has teamed up with eBay, which is Web Interpret, and they sort of help internationalize. I mean, things like item titles. I mean, is that worth doing into foreign languages? Images, descriptions, things like that. Martin?
For us, it's questionable, but then I think it's very much down to the product group or the category you're selling in. Certainly, if you are selling in a clothing category or anything that involves sizing that may be different outside of the UK, then it's you're pretty much going to do no business unless you do some conversion or translation process. Even if it's just trying to explain what a colour something is, you've got an issue there taking it outside of the UK. to the US, you've got a sizing issue. So even if English is the common language, you still got differences, and they need to be overcome, because at the end of the day, you need to make it as easy as possible for your buyers to understand what they're potentially buying or potentially going to, you know, or even just as part of searching, you know, the part of the search process, just enabling your listings to be found.
Yeah. So Stuart, I mean, you do sell clothing, don't you, Stuart?
Well, we sell jewellery, so we don't really sell clothing. But what we've found is when we've been doing any translation work, that a lot of countries might not have a word that we would use in our title, for example, or they may use 3 words for the same word that we would use, which is Germany. So, for example, we had an issue with, we sell these stag's head ornaments for the wall, and we found that there was 3 different words to say stag's heads. So that's why we felt that it was better to have somebody that was working in-house for us, that was German and knew those sort of little parts of it. So, like Martin says, even if they're UK, you know, even if they're English speakers, there is variations in words and ways that we looked at things and sizes, for example. I would always suggest, if you're thinking of selling, say for example, if you're thinking of selling your products in Australia, then just go and have a look around eBay and, well, not Amazon in Australia, but eBay or other websites, and just see what they do, and just have a look and get an idea of what you could do, really.
Yeah. Okay, Matt, have we got some more?
Yeah, probably time for maybe 2 more. I've got one here from Stephanie, who says she's listed on a number of sort of Amazon local sort of marketplaces, but she's struggling to find an audience for her product, quite a specialist product. Just wondered what you guys would advise in terms of the marketing bit. Once you're listed, what can you do to actually market your product without spending money or huge amounts of money on local PR and advertising?
So that sounds like quite a general question, how you get to the top spot on Amazon. I mean, it's tricky, Stuart, isn't it? I mean, there's stuff like the buy box, and it's very price competitive. But how do you rise up so you're getting an audience on Amazon?
Well, we're quite lucky. I would say probably 95% of our products now are our own. So we don't have a huge amount of competition in terms of people coming to list against us on Amazon in sort of price wars, if you like. So we do find that you know, helps us, and we have moved the business in that direction. When we first started, we used to just buy products that were, you know, sort of off the peg that everybody would do, and then there's always somebody out there that will sell it cheaper than you will be able to. So we're quite lucky that what we've done ever since the beginning is we've developed our own brands. So everything has its own brand name, and you know, that's starting to pay off now with our jewelry business. Probably now 50% of our orders are on our own website, in comparison to marketplaces. So we've tried to look at every sort of part of the business that we do, whether it's the package we send it in or the way that we photograph it, and try and build a brand up. It does take time, certainly on your own website. We've used, you know, marketplaces to get the sort of orders and customers and money in, and we've invested that into our own website.
Yeah.
There.
Martin, how about tips to getting to the top on Amazon?
Price, customer service, and price. Obviously.
Well, I mean, I think that's exactly it. That is not a flippant answer, is it? I mean,
no. I mean, Amazon is very price driven, and if you are less keen to get involved in price wars, then there's not much else you can really do, because you are effectively on a retailer's platform, with the biggest kind of elephant in the room being Amazon themselves. So, and there's always someone going to be more interested in going out of business faster than you by pushing their prices down. You've either got to have a sufficiently wide spread of products that if one of them switches off for a while, you've got other ones to sell, or you've got to have a multi-channel approach, which means that, you know, if Amazon goes a bit quiet for you, then you need to have a presence on eBay that's doing something, or you need to be kind of, you know, looking at an international strategy, which means that you're offering your product in a territory where there is maybe no other competition, or certainly the local competition maybe not be able to have the sort of access to the product that you've got. Therefore, you can price lower, etc., etc., etc.
Yes. I mean, I'd also say that I think it's in those cases it's sometimes worth considering FBA, which is fulfillment by Amazon, where Amazon holds your goods, and it does mean you can get the buy box and attract Prime visitors. But
yes, that's certainly a very strong domestic play. We've also tried it internationally, and we do that to a limited extent in Europe. It's something we're still experimenting with. You can, with a European account, send your stuff to a fulfillment centre in the UK and then have it fulfilled directly to customers around Europe. There's different fee structure with that, of course.
Some of it is quite expensive, let's be honest.
It is, yes. But it depends on the volume, how many you want to sell, how many you have available. If you've got an endless supply of your product, then you want as many Amazon customers as you can, I would have thought.
Okay, well, let's try and squeeze another question in. Have you got?
Last one from the community, and anyone we didn't manage to get to, as Gemma suggested, if you go to opentoexport.com, you can ask your question on the Q&A forum and get answers to questions, however specific. The last one, I think, for the panel, we've talked a lot about Amazon and eBay. We've had quite a few questions about what's the best platform or marketplace to get into specific markets. Do you guys have experience of more specialised regional or even sort of sector-specific marketplaces, or any kind of insights you'd share about that?
Well, that's good. I mean, it's a very good question, and I'll kick off with a few observations, which is firstly in the sort of craft, vintage, retro sort of cutesy market. There's of course Etsy.com, which is going great guns here in Britain and is big in the States, less so in Europe. In Poland, eBay hasn't been massively successful in conquering Poland, but there is a big marketplace there, which currently the name escapes me. Someone might be able to remember. Anyway, the biggest marketplace in Poland is not eBay. So yeah, I mean, there are in different territories, different marketplaces that it's well worth looking at, but they won't always automatically be open to British sellers. So there's a bit of research needed there, depending what you're selling and where, I think. Guys, anything to add?
I completely agree with that. It depends on what niche you're in as well. You know, there's certain, if you're in books, there are other websites that are probably better.
With second-hand books, there's AB Books, isn't there?
Yeah, there's Abe, and there's another one called Alibris.
Yeah.
And you know, there's certainly, particularly if you've got fine books and you know, antiquarian, it's not. Amazon isn't always the best place to be on something like that. So if you're in a particular sector, then research that sector, find out where people are shopping, or at least what marketplace might have authority, and then and try it out. But that should be part of a multi-channel strategy. I would have thought. The Amazon and eBay between them are going to bring you probably 80% more of your customers. So. Yeah. Around that, you've got the Rakutens and and various other niche sites, and if you're looking into Europe, you've got Fnac or Tesco's here. They're obviously bigger retailers that have a marketplace element to what they're doing. But
Stuart, you use Rakuten Play.com. Do you get much traction from that?
In terms of international, there's not a huge amount there. I think it's somewhere we decided to be on because I think it's going to be something in the future. But again, it's another sales channel that we sell from, and if we have 3 orders a day, it's 3 more than we would have had. It's also introducing people to our brand as well. I would suggest, marketplaces, are great to begin with, but we've actually moved our strategy more to our own websites now, and we're seeing, good traction on sales uplifts on our own websites, because we've, everything is branded up, so that people search for the, I think people are getting more savvy now, so they might see a brand that they'll come across on eBay and go and search for that on Google, and then perhaps sometimes buy direct from the website as opposed to buying on eBay. There's various options like that, but we also installed Amazon checkout on our website, and that has worked extremely well for us. That means that people with Amazon accounts anywhere in the world can just simply, with a click, purchase pretty much from your own website as well.
Okay, well, thanks very much, guys. I think we're going to have to wrap up, and that's Stuart and Martin there, who really have a wealth of knowledge. So thank you for spending the hour with us. I hope you've learned something, picked something up. I personally take away what is quite a positive message, which is there is an opportunity, and if you want to get involved, you can take it. So don't forget that the webinar will be archived on Open to Export for you to listen again, or if you didn't catch all of it, you can look over it later. There's obviously on the Open to Export site the community discussions there. If you've got questions that haven't been answered, you can find out more there. And please do stop by on tamebay.com, where we cover a lot of these international issues on a daily basis. But thanks for listening.
Thanks, Dan. And just to reiterate, thank you for everyone for staying for the full hour, and thank you to Dan and Stuart and Martin for your time and sharing your expertise and business experience. It's very much appreciated and very encouraging to see that there is such a great opportunity out there. As Dan mentioned, guys, you can view this on our YouTube channel. Give us a day or so and we'll get the recording up there so you can watch it back again and absorb some of that really good content. If you do have any questions, or if we didn't manage to get to your question, we did receive so many, so apologies if that's the case, just log on to opentoexport.com and post your question in the discussion forum, and we'll make sure that you get a personalised response from our community. The next webinar is coming up in 2 weeks' time. If you've registered and clicked auto enroll, then you'll automatically receive your registration details a little bit closer to the time. If you decided not to auto enroll, please do go to our international e-commerce feature page and get registered on that one. And here is the link to the YouTube channel as well. When you finish today, you will be presented with a short survey, and we would very much appreciate if you could take the time and complete that. And thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. We look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks. Goodbye.